Alrighty, welcome back everyone to a Tales of the Empire commentary and review with Jake and I. Jason is out right now, so unfortunately we won't get to hear his opinions, but um we're wanting to come together. We had to get this out in a timely manner, so we decided to do this right now. So
Yeah.
this one is just kind of a brief introduction into this, right? We've had two of these short story series already, or Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire. And Tales of the Jedi, right, tells a lot about stories about Count Dooku, about Ahsoka, and a lot of interesting stories there. And this one kind of wraps around the story between Barriss Offee, and Morgan Elsbeth. And so we'll just go in and start with the Morgan episodes. This one was super cool because my original thoughts about Morgan's episodes were kind of like, like, is this a story that I really want to know about, right?
hmm
And when we first were introduced to Morgan, we didn't know she was a Night Sister, right?
Yeah.
Until it was revealed in Ahsoka. And so we kind of got a little bit more of a kind of background on her story. And overall, I thought the episodes were actually kind of very interesting, right? There were some things that were brought up during the three episodes that I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that that was actually about her, right? Or like that this happened to her. And so I wanted to get kind of your thoughts. What are your original thoughts about the Morgan episodes? Just overall general thoughts.
Yeah. I think general thoughts, I wish that they wouldn't have taken 3 episodes of Tales of the Empire to talk about Morgan's story. I felt like they were kind of just drawing it out for all it was worth. We
Right.
had some cool parts, like you said. We get to see kind of the grievous separatist kind of genocide of the Night Sister people.
Yeah.
And we got to see how Morgan was involved in that, which I think was good. And we saw her kind of transition from this like Night Sister to this more kind of like human, not Night Sister character that we meet in Ahsoka. So I feel like the way that it tied into the Star Wars universe as a whole was pretty strong. But when I see Tales of the Empire, I'm not like, oh, sick, we're getting a Morgan Elsbeth story.
Right.
I'm like, okay, let's give me something else to go on, right? Like I do, we'll get to the Barris episode specifically regarding the Inquisitors, but I was thinking, Tales of the Empire is going to revolve more around like the stormtroopers, or maybe like an elite group of stormtroopers, or maybe more of this inquisitorious Darth Vader kind of style, as opposed to like, okay, here's this random character who was in Ahsoka and The Mandalorian, and now we're going to take half of our whole show to just focus on her. So I felt
Right.
like it was a strong tie-in, and it definitely checked boxes in connecting things. But do I feel like it was like 100% needed? Not really. I feel like it would have been much better used to maybe spend like 1 episode on Morgan, and then dedicate those other 2 episodes to other characters within kind of this Empire era. And like you discussed too, Tales of the Jedi, I felt like was executed really well. But we saw there were some one-off kind of episodes in there. We got the story about Ahsoka when she was like a little kid, and that was just kind of a standalone, right? Ahsoka's a big character, but like, could we have lived without that? Yeah, but like they only spent an episode on it, so that's how I felt kind of about the Morgan Elsbeth arc as a whole. It just was a little too drawn out.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first and second episodes were really interesting. Or I guess those first and second ones. The third one, honestly, we could have gone without, right? And I think they could have done um the first and second episode kind of into one, right? And
Yeah,
still have kept it 15 minutes. So I agree with you on that. But kind of going into those two episodes, I really enjoyed seeing like crazy Grievous show up, right? That was super cool to see kind of because we kind of saw in Clone Wars that just the destruction of the Night Sisters from like the Night Sister or from the droid aspect, right? From the droid point
yeah,
of view almost. And I mean, we got to it cut back and forth, but like it was a lot more from the droid and from like the separatist side. But now we got to kind of see it from Morgan's eyes through the Night Sister side. And, we see that her mother ends up dying, right? We don't know if this is just like her actual mother or if this was just like a Night Sister mother, you know.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's probably just her actual biological mother, but I don't know what them. But that was super crazy to see how like how outmatched they were, right? Grievous was like almost toying with them.
Mhm.
And I guess is there anything else that you wanted to bring up with Grievous? I think that was just such an interesting and cool way to bring him in.
Yeah, no, I thought again, I thought that was one of the stronger points of that story arc. Not specifically in regards to Grievous, but we can kind of get into this more later. Specifically with like the whole TIE Defender project and with Admiral Thrawn. Again, I think bringing Grievous in was one of the stronger like elements of the Morgan Elsbeth arc. But again, just like I said, I don't know if I have anything else to add
Right.
specifically to that scene. So
Yeah. My one thing with that episode is I wish we would have seen Marin too, because Marin was also
yes,
alive during that. And so that would have been a cool episode to be like, oh, well, she's not the only Night Sister that survived and
yeah.
stuff. But I don't know. Maybe we'll get something else to see or that. But yeah, let's go
Well,
into the set. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'll jump in there since you bring up Marin. I think that was one of my biggest disappointments, and I was going to talk about this a lot more in the Barris episodes. But one of my largest disappointments with Tales of the Empire was we had the perfect opportunity to bring in so many characters from the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor series to not live action, right, but to the animated Star Wars universe. And I felt like it would have been a reach because you're going to some fans that haven't played the games and wouldn't know the characters, right? But the fans that continuously follow up with every show and every video game, you're giving them the perfect opportunity to introduce them, and they're just completely absent, right? Like I feel like these episodes again, if we have some type of Marion tie-in to the Night Sisters, that would have been so cool. And then we move over into the Barris episodes, and I could talk about this more then, but perfect opportunity to bring up Trilla and have her be
Right.
involved. Again, maybe you find a way to involve Seer Junda in the
Yeah.
story as well. If you don't want to go too on the nose and just throw Cal Kestis right into it, right? Which Tales of the Empire, right? Maybe you don't lead with that, but you
Right.
could find some way to bring these other characters in that I feel like would have been really like would have felt like it would have gone into the show really well. But again, they focus on these other side characters, which while they're cool and could kind of add to the overall Star Wars universe, like it just kind of felt like a miss for me in that
Right.
regard. Yeah.
Exactly. And I feel like, I mean, not bagging on, um, Dave Filoni and everything, but like I feel like Star Wars has been scared to add Jedi Fallen Order like that
Mm-hmm.
universe into it. Even though it is canonical, it is the same universe. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
seen elements and tiny elements of it, but it's like they're afraid to add in there. And I don't know why, right? Like that would hit a lot, that would bridge a gap between, non-players of the game and players of the game. And we just haven't seen anything of that. But
Definitely.
uh yeah, so kind of moving into that second episode, the TIE Defender project. I thought that was super interesting to know that she was the one that kind of was bringing that up, right? She was the one that designed it. And it's cool because I mean, I'm okay with that, right? It's not just something that Thrawn just like came up with, right? It actually makes sense that he was helping kind of her I guess like helping her get that project off the ground and actually make it right. And then we end up seeing that in Rebels where they're actually getting prototypes out and they're, potentially getting that into um like factory phase and
Mm-hmm.
fabrication phase. And that was super cool because I'm like, okay, yeah, like that's a cool bridge of bridging, Ahsoka and that later era with Rebels, which is a rebel which is a era that is very close in tied with that one, right? And I thought that was super cool, and the fact that they were able to bring that in, kind of tie that up really nicely. I was a big fan of that. I was okay with that. What were
Yeah,
your thoughts?
no, yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think as far as the direction of the show and focusing on Morgan Elsbeth, I was happy that they explained what her connection was to Thrawn. And again, like you said, bringing in the TIE Defender project as the reason why they're connected, I thought was a really cool way to kind of bring the two of them together. Because obviously, in the Mandalorian and in Ahsoka, she has this relationship to Thrawn, but we didn't know what that was. So
Right.
again, I think you said it really well. It was cool that they brought in that TIE Defender project, and that was the way that they're able to bridge her kind of being around in that era, her connection to Thrawn, and then again how that connection lasted beyond the series to the Mandalorian and to Ahsoka.
Right. Right. Yeah. Almost made it like a full blown connection instead of like we didn't need to see her, in Rebels for to know that she was still relevant in that area.
Mhm.
The other thing I wanted to like the last thing about the Morgan Elsbeth episodes that I want to bring up, and I'll let you have some thoughts on anything else that you want to bring up from those episodes, but just the third episode where we get to see kind of like a push to the future, right? Right before episode 6 of Mandalorian season 2, we kind of get the connection of how Ahsoka was on Corvus and how she showed up to Corvus and all that stuff. And it was cool to kind of see that in the end where it was I honestly like again like that episode was almost like nuanced and didn't really need to happen, but it also was like I think these all these 3 episodes have been like okay cool little connections with the show, right, with the bigger Star Wars universe. And this was just another one where we get to see the representative of the New Republic at the end make a call to Bo-Katan, and that's probably where Ahsoka gets introduced and stuff, and she makes it onto that planet. So yeah, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I felt like that was just like a wasted 15 minutes for me. I was like New Republic shows up, like the whole person's all like, "Yeah, Corvus can join the New Republic," and I'm coming in here with like my 6 guards. I was like, "Bro, what are you doing?" Like,
You guys are gonna
I, I,
die.
I was watching that with a buddy, and I would just straight up when I saw him, I was like, "Oh yeah, she's dying here. Like she's not making it out."
Yeah.
And yeah, but like you said, I felt like again they connected with Mandalorian. I thought it was a fun time that they had Bo-Katan at the end, and again, like you're saying, explaining how Ahsoka ends up on Corvus and how it connects to the Mandalorian. But for me, it just felt like, okay, do we really need 15 minutes to explain that relationship?
Right.
I don't know. So
I didn't think so. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good point.
outside of that, I don't know if I really have anything else to add on to specifically the Morgan episodes, but yeah, that one, I mean, I felt like it was pretty weak. You're just gonna send like a couple guards and a representative down to the planet and expect good things to happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
It seemed a little
No.
too idealistic for me. So
Right. Agreed. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. So we can go ahead and move on to the Barris episodes, which again, these are super cool because it starts off pretty strong, where Barris is in the cell right after she's still in prison and she looks out and she sees the temple being bombed, right, being destroyed. And
mhm.
that's like during Order 66. And um it kind of bridges that gap from Order 66 until when that Inquisitor that I think we first see her in Kenobi, she shows up and introduces kind of Barris and be like, "Hey, I got you. Like, you're betrayed by the Jedi. Like, we need you, right? We need you for something special." And so
Mhm.
Barris ends up following her, and we kind of get this insider view of the Inquisitor gauntlet, right? How they choose Inquisitors and how it comes to be. Because in Jedi Fallen Order, we see a little bit of that, right? Where
Yeah.
when Cal talks to the to Trilla and to the I always get this one mixed up. I think it's the third sister. I don't remember.
Okay.
Um, anyways, they kind of talk about how they were tortured, basically. Like Vader basically put them to the mental and physical ringer, and that's where their hatred came out, and that's when they turned into Inquisitors, right?
Hmm.
And I read a comic as well about the Inquisitor like training where uh kind of like what we see in Jedi Fallen Order as well, where Vader cuts off a dude's arm and he's just like, you still have to fight. Like, this isn't game. Like, you're not over. I'm not going to stop the fight because your hand's gone. Like, use that hatred to keep on fighting. And so there's this darkness that kind of goes into it. And we kind of see it a little bit in this gauntlet, but in a different perspective, where it's almost like a fight every man for themselves sort of thing. And so, um, your thoughts on that episode? You know, the Inquisitor Gauntlet, Grand Inquisitor. We get to see kind of him in that light. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I loved. I think they did the Grand Inquisitor justice in this adaptation. Like you're saying, you have to see the corruption that goes from being a Jedi to being an Inquisitor, and I think they try and show that. For me, I just felt like Barris's character, especially at the start, she was just so, um, just like very subdued, and she like almost like timid, and for me, that was just so different to what she was in season 5 of Clone Wars, when she bombs the Jedi Temple and she's kind of this extreme Jedi. When she's fighting Anakin and all these things, she seems so much more rash and so much crazier. Whereas she has kind of this callback to the light in Tales of the Empire, which for me, like, I don't know if I really loved. Like, I
Yeah,
I, I wanted to see her kind of more fall into the darkness a bit more, because it is Tales of the Empire, right? I wasn't really expecting like it to be about Barriss Offee, like redemption arc
right.
almost, and so that was surprising to me. We can speak about that as we move further along. But as far as the intro to kind of her episodes, yeah, she appeared really timid at first. I think they did a decent job of showing her kind of moving more towards being an inquisitor. Obviously, throughout that training, like you said, with the Grand Inquisitor, and then as well when she fights the one guy, his name Dante or something.
Yeah,
The
or
the other
something. Oh,
yeah, the other
yeah.
Jedi that she kills before she joins the Inquisitorius. And I can't remember. I'm pretty sure this one, does she meet Vader in the end of her first episode, or is it in the second episode that she
I
meets
think
Vader?
it's the I think it's the beginning of for the second episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if yeah, I don't know if you have more to say about the first
Yeah,
episode,
no.
but I think as far as like her meeting with Vader, like I think they did the reunion, if you will, justice, right? That obviously she has no idea who Vader is, even though like darn right, Anakin knows that this is Barriss, right? She's sitting there with her helmet off and everything. I think they did a good job of portraying that, and having like Barriss maybe like reach out through the Force and recognizing Anakin, I think would have been a stretch,
Right.
because they don't have that connection. And then as well, but you never know what's going on in Vader's head. He's always just very robotic in there, and so I think they did him justice in kind of how he appeared in the show, and I think he looked really good in the animation. So
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think that was a super cool part because we kind of yeah, I don't have much to say more about the gauntlet, but it I thought it had potential at the beginning with Barris just being like, reaching out with the dark side of the force. And we're like, oh, okay, we're gonna see this like steady decline of her just being like darkness, 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 right?
yeah,
And then we kind of see that we see the reunion of the Inquisitors. We only see that there was like a couple of the Inquisitors at the beginning, right? And that
yeah,
was I wish we would have seen like Trilla, like you said, like where we get to see Trilla
yeah,
like join in. Like this would have been a perfect opportunity. Like we saw the sixth brother, which ends up getting killed in the end, right, by Ahsoka. It's like
yeah,
could have added her in there. But again, like I feel like the writers are just scared. I don't know. There's no other reason why I can't think of why they would want to add Jedi Fallen Order into there, right? After already
for sure.
making it canon. But that was I mean, we kind of saw it because the trailer gave it away and we got to see Vader in it. And he only had like a 12-second appearance, and that was it. He didn't even say anything, right? He just showed up,
Yeah,
sat down in the throne, and then that was it. Um, and then kind of moving on to that, like we see Barris go to this planet with Lynn, right? And Lynn just massacres everyone. Was able to like find out the information to the Jedi that they end up going and fighting. But that was kind of crazy. I was like, okay, that's Inquisitor behavior that I thought of, right? Like that I was expecting. But Barris was
yeah,
just like, no, like, let me help you, little kid. Like, listen to me. Right. She was like
yeah,
very, very mature. And I'm like, this isn't the Barris that literally told Anakin that red was her color, right? Who bombed the Jedi Temple, who
yeah,
blamed one of her best friends for it, right? Killing people. Like that's not the Barris that we were seeing. This is like almost like like season one or like season two of Clone Wars Barris, where she's or season I think
yeah,
it's season one, where she's like hanging out with Ahsoka,
Hmm.
right? Like that's not who that is. And so that was where I was just like, okay, that was probably one of my biggest things throughout all three episodes of how quickly she went from dark side, right? She's like dark side up here in Clone Wars. And then she was like dark side a little bit in I thought it was gonna like maintain, right? Dark side in the first episode. And then it's like okay, she's light side now, and then light side even more, and then she just automatically swaps over, and she's like, "All right, you got to kill me. I'm a Jedi now. I'm a Jedi
Yeah.
again, right?" And I thought it was a little bit of a cop out, and I was like, I mean, if you want to give Barriss, who was a great character at the beginning of Clone Wars, a little bit of like a more redemption, I think you could have done it in a better way, but in the end, it was just like I just thought that was interesting. And I guess kind of the last thing I wanted to bring up was just her death, right? We end up seeing her death and her trying to convert Lynn back from being an Inquisitor to kind of like the light side of the Force, right? To being like accepting help. And we see
Hmm.
that Lynn kind of leaves her lightsaber behind in that ice cave and ends up um going with Barriss. And I guess I mean I don't know if you have anything to say about her like nomadic lifestyle and her being a healer, going from Inquisitor to healer like super quickly, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, it was just interesting to see like how that whole played out. So there's kind of like a big question mark on is Barriss dead, right? Is Lynn gonna heal her? Is she gonna live? Is she gonna die? There's so many people who can barely take lightsaber stabs to the abdomen and live. So I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll see. But yeah, any thoughts on the last few episodes?
Yeah. I think again, I totally agree with you. I just I thought that we were getting something different, right? Like I feel like we low key just we got Tales of Morgan Elsbeth, and then we got Tales of the Jedi, sort of part two.
Yeah.
I think what they could have done better, again, like you said, some nod to Trilla would have been amazing. And I know Jason would probably agree with us on that one, being the big Jedi Fallen Order Jedi Survivor fan that he is. Um, and bringing in other characters. My biggest complaint with the final episode, like if you're gonna make Barriss go to the light side, then you have to end the story, I think, on a darker turn. And what I was hoping for was she senses through the Force that some being is approaching, right? When she's on her like ice planet or whatever, and you
Right.
see the shadowy figure in the distance. And I was watching, I was like, dude, Vader's coming to finish the
Vader's
job.
coming to kill her.
And so then I thought we were gonna get rematch from season 5 of Clone Wars where we have Barriss versus Anakin again, right?
Oh,
But Vader's
that's a
gonna
great
finish the
point.
yeah, right. He's gonna finish the job and take out the Jedi. And then that would have felt like Tales of the Empire to me, right? Because you have the Empire. But no, we got like another redemption for an Inquisitor. And so I get you want to play with this balance between like these fallen Jedi that are becoming Inquisitors and they have this inner turmoil. But for me, you've marketed the show as Tales of the Empire. I think it would have sat better with me if we would have had a final showdown between Vader and Barriss. And there at that point, you could maybe pull something out of, you know, Anakin has turned to the dark side, and now the tables have kind of turned, right? Where instead of Anakin being on the light side fighting Barriss in season 5 after she bombs the Jedi Temple, now you have the script is kind of flipped, right? Where Anakin has given into the dark side, but Barriss has been redeemed. But Barriss isn't going to get the better of Vader, right? In the
Yeah,
end,
no
Vader's
way.
going to kill her, and so
Yeah.
I think that for me, that would have wrapped up the show better, made it feel more true to the style Tales of the Empire. But again, maybe my expectations for the show were just a lot darker than what Disney and what Star Wars wanted to give us.
Right.
So I don't know. Those are kind of my overall thoughts in regards to those episodes. So yeah.
Okay. Well then let's just jump right into the ratings then. We kind of talked a little bit about the overall feelings of the show, so we might as well just get into it. Why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I'm gonna go really low on this one comparative to our other reviews. I'd give it probably about a 5 out of 10. Just split right down the middle. For me, I think the really redeeming aspects of the show were, like I said, these tie-ins to the main Star Wars universe. We got some connections from Morgan Elsbeth, which I thought was awesome. We got to see her connections to Thrawn. We got to see her connection to the Night Sisters. as well as a lot of the build up to the Mandalorian into Ahsoka. So I thought those points were really, really strong. Again, with Barriss, I liked how we did get to see an aspect of the Inquisitorius. And one thing we didn't mention was seeing kind of the construction of the Inquisitorius on
Yeah.
the ocean moon, you know? So like
Yeah.
that was cool. Um, and we got to see Vader at some point, which is cool. I liked the Grand Inquisitor. Again, those tie-ins to the main story were great. But I think I kind of came away from it more with a sense of like, okay, cool to watch, but
Yeah.
it didn't take my breath away like Tales of the Jedi did, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts. I think if they would have focused on maybe some other characters within the Empire, maybe spent a little bit less time on Morgan Elsbeth, went a little bit darker as we discussed with Barriss, and given Vader a little bit more screen time, as well as those kind of connections we talked about, maybe bringing in some Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, that score would have raised significantly. But for me, it was more than a miss than a hit. So
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna be a little bit more generous, but not by much.
mhm.
I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I'm in the same ballpark as you, where it's like it left a lot more to be desired, and
Mhm.
it hit a lot of stories that I'm like, okay, this could have had so much more potential. Like Barriss turning into an Inquisitor and having like her do some really, Inquisitor things, and then kind of have that redemption, right? Because I mean, that's the whole story of Star Wars in the end,
Yeah.
where it's like Vader did all these horrible things, Anakin did all these horrible things, and then turned into Vader. But everyone thought that he was gone, right? Obi-Wan thought that he had died. Ahsoka thought that he was gone, right? But Luke was the only one in the end who's just like, "You're my father. I know there's good in you," right? And he
Yeah.
was able to redeem him. And that's just the whole story. It's like there's always redemption in the end.
Mhm.
And I think that's what was lacking in this story, and I wish they would have done a little bit more with that, and especially with Barriss and with Morgan. Like I wish there would have connected a little bit more with the story, with kind of giving a little bit more of what we would want to see and connect it with more of like an outlying Star Wars universe story.
Mhm.
Um, but in the end, it was uh the tie-ins to to Rebels, to Clone Wars, to a bunch of other things that really saved it for me and really gave me that like, okay, yeah, this is interesting stuff. I'm not gonna say this is like on a horrible level, but it definitely left more to be desired. So
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, 6 out of 10 for me. And yeah, there's our review and commentary about Tales of the Empire. Hopefully, Star Wars will give us some more stuff. I mean, Acolyte's gonna be coming out in June, and
Mhm.
the Skeleton Crew should be coming out sometime this year, from what I've seen. And I mean, Star Wars Outlaws. So, got a lot of
Yeah.
Star Wars content still going on, but catch us for a lot more. Peace.
Yeah.